Something unprecedented just happened above our heads, and almost no one is talking about it. 6 hours ago, at exactly 8:14 UTC on February 27, 2026, Earth's low orbit went silent. Not slow, not unstable, silent. I'm not referring to a local outage or a faulty update. I'm talking about the most advanced communications system ever built by humanity, Starlink. Every single satellite in the constellation, all 6,428 of them, went offline at the same moment. No warning, no gradual failure. 1 second the system was alive, the next it was gone. For exactly 17 minutes, the network that supports global finance, military operations, emergency response, and millions of civilians simply vanished. SpaceX immediately locked down its Hawthorne headquarters. No statements, no tweets, no explanations. But the data doesn't lie, and what it shows breaks the rules of physics as we understand them. This was not a cyber attack. It was not a software failure. It was not solar activity. At the same moment Starlink went dark, NASA's Deep Space Network detected something extraordinary. The DSS-43 antenna in Canberra registered a massive, highly focused electromagnetic spike. The signal did not come from the Sunday, it did not come from Earth. It came from the trajectory of an object known as 3I, Atlas, currently 180 million kilometers away. Officially, Atlas is classified as a comet, a loose collection of ice and rock. Yet this object emitted a signal so precise, so targeted, that it cut through military-grade encryption and jammed only Starlink's operating frequencies. The probability of this occurring naturally is estimated at 0.000004%. Comets are chaotic by nature. They spin unpredictably, vent gas randomly, and produce noisy, unfocused emissions. They do not fire synchronized electromagnetic bursts with sniper-like accuracy. To disable over 6,000 satellites simultaneously from that distance would require terawatts of power focused into a beam narrower than half a degree. That level of energy concentration demands technology and intent. And yet the official explanation offered so far is an anomaly. What makes this even more unsettling is what happened during the blackout. While the world scrambled to reconnect, internal Starlink logs show something unexpected. The network wasn't just offline, it was receiving data. A massive influx of information was uploaded from an external source. That forces us to ask the real question, not how did this happen, but what was sent to us. Because if 3I, Atlas can interact with our infrastructure this precisely, then it is no longer an object we are observing. It is something engaging with us directly. To understand why the glitch theory collapses, we have to examine the timeline. At SpaceX's Network Operations Center, failure indicators lit up all at once. Satellite malfunctions normally follow a predictable statistical curve. One fails here, another minutes later, somewhere else. This time, it was a vertical drop. At 8:14 and 3 seconds, telemetry from 200 satellites over the Pacific vanished. 2 seconds later, the Northern Hemisphere grid went dark. 4 seconds after that, the entire constellation was silent. Different orbits, different software versions, same outcome within 6 seconds. At first, engineers suspected a bad update. Then they checked the external sensors. That's when panic set in. Starlink satellites are equipped with space weather monitors, and those sensors were overwhelmed. They detected an external signal so strong it saturated the receivers. Starlink operates in the Q and K bands, between 10.7 and 14.5 GHz. Nature does not normally transmit in these ranges. The Sun produces broadband noise. Jupiter emits low-frequency radio waves, but this signal was locked precisely at 12.5 GHz. That level of tuning implies knowledge of our systems. It implies intent. And this wasn't just SpaceX data. Independent confirmation came from 3 continents. NASA's Goldstone facility detected the interference while tracking Voyager. The European Space Agency station recorded a magnetic disturbance pointing directly back to Atlas. And in West Virginia, the Green Bank telescope observed a coherent pulsing signal that drowned out cosmic background noise. 3 separate systems, 3 methods, 1 conclusion. The source was 3I, Atlas. But the story doesn't stop there. As the minutes passed, the signal evolved. What began as brute force jamming shifted into something structured. Right before Starlink came back online, the signal started pulsing in a clean, repeating pattern. The interval between pulses was exactly 1.618 seconds. The golden ratio, that number appears in nature, yes, but not as a precisely timed electromagnetic pulse from deep space. The odds of a comet producing that rhythm by chance are effectively 0. At this point, the blackout no longer looks like a failure, it looks like a handshake. And for 17 minutes, our most advanced network responded. But that exchange was only the beginning, because the energy involved makes the situation even harder to dismiss. Signals weaken over distance. For a transmission from that far away to overpower low Earth orbit satellites, the source would need terawatts of output. Enough energy to melt a comet instantly, yet Atlas remained intact. Cold, stable, accelerating. And that raises the question we're about to confront next. If this object isn't behaving like a comet, then what exactly is it? To grasp how impossible this really is, we need to slow down and look at the physics. Comets are often described as dirty snowballs, leftovers from the early solar system made of frozen gases, dust, and rock. As they approach the sun, they heat up, the ice sublimates, and a tail forms. That's basic thermodynamics. That's textbook science. But 3I, Atlas, is rewriting those textbooks in real time. The energy required to emit a directed electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt Starlink from 180 million kilometers away is staggering. We're talking about roughly 14 terawatts of power. That's about 70% of all electricity produced by human civilization at any given moment. If a normal comet somehow released that much energy, the heat buildup would be catastrophic. Internal temperatures would spike, the ice would flash into vapor, and the object would tear itself apart. But that didn't happen. Telescopes tracking Atlas, including high-resolution arrays in Chile, show its structure remained perfectly intact. Its surface temperature stayed near -70 degrees Celsius. This directly violates the second law of thermodynamics. You cannot generate that much directed energy without producing waste heat, unless the process involved is not thermal at all. That suggests an entirely different mechanism, and the spectral data supports that conclusion. During the pulse, astronomers detected emission lines that should not exist on a comet, specifically technetium 98. This element has no stable isotopes. It doesn't occur naturally on Earth except as a byproduct of nuclear reactors, and in space it is found only inside dying stars. It decays quickly. Finding it on a comet is like discovering a running engine inside an ancient fossil. It implies recent active synthesis. Natural comets do not produce radioactive isotopes, they do not host nuclear processes, yet the signature was clear, and the anomalies didn't stop with chemistry. When scientists reviewed Atlas's trajectory, they found something even more troubling. Orbital mechanics are precise. We can predict the motion of comets years in advance using gravity and outgassing models, but during the 17-minute blackout, Atlas changed velocity. It gained 0.04 kilometers per second. For an object estimated to be 2 kilometers wide, that requires an enormous force. Here's the problem. There was no visible outgassing, no jets, no expansion of its tail, no reaction mass. It accelerated without propellant. This is what astrophysicists call non-gravitational acceleration, and without a visible cause, it's a major red flag. We've seen something similar once before, in 2017, with Oumuamua. But that object was tumbling chaotically. Atlas is not. Its rotation is stable, locked, and its acceleration vector was perfectly aligned with Earth during the pulse. Newton's third law is unforgiving. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If Atlas fired a powerful beam toward Earth, it would experience recoil. That means the signal carried momentum, a lot of it. So we're left with two possibilities. Either this is a completely unknown state of matter in physics, or it isn't natural at all. Skeptics argue coincidence, sensor error, data artifacts, but 3 independent observatories recorded the same event. The Starlink network felt the impact. Trajectory data confirms the acceleration. Numbers don't care about opinions. And there's another detail that deepens the mystery. The frequency of the pulse, 12.5 gigahertz, sits near what radio astronomers call the waterhole, a quiet region of the spectrum where intelligent civilizations are expected to transmit. Atlas didn't broadcast into empty space. It transmitted directly into the frequencies we use to communicate. If you approach this without bias, the conclusion is unavoidable. At 8:14 UTC, a cold object with signs of nuclear activity targeted our global communication infrastructure with a mathematically structured signal. That's not speculation. That's what the instruments recorded. And just when engineers thought the event was over, something else appeared in the data. Something far more unsettling than physics anomalies. It wasn't noise. It wasn't interference. It was information. Everything up to this point could still be framed as extreme astrophysics, strange but distant. But what happened next pulls this event directly into our world. During the final 90 seconds of the blackout, the signal from 3I, Atlas changed again. The jamming stopped. What replaced it was a clean carrier wave, and embedded inside that wave was structured data. At 8:30 UTC, a report leaked from a SpaceX engineer on an encrypted forum. It included a screenshot of raw telemetry logs from a Starlink gateway in Washington state. The logs showed something unmistakable: packet injection, not random interference, not corrupted noise, actual data packets entering the network. When engineers decoded the binary, it didn't produce static or meaningless output. It produced numbers, prime numbers. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. The sequence repeated. This is not a trivial detail. In the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, prime numbers are considered a universal marker of intelligence. Nature doesn't count. Pulsars pulse, stars flare, but they don't arrange information into mathematical sequences. A prime number series is deliberate. It's a signature. And then the pattern changed. After the third repetition, the signal shifted again. This time it wasn't math, it was visual data. A simple bitmap image, low resolution but clear. A star, 8 planets. And the third planet highlighted, Earth. Next to it, another point appeared, a new object. The implication was chilling. Atlas wasn't just passing through. The acceleration we observed wasn't random. It was a course correction. Updated trajectory models showed the object was slowing down, entering an injection orbit. That means it wasn't on a flyby path. It was parking. Right now, as these calculations update, Atlas is decelerating in a way no natural object should be able to without shedding mass. If this data is authentic, then what we're witnessing is not a message from light years away. It's a presence inside our solar system. And that explains the silence from leaders and executives. Because if an object can disable thousands of satellites, rewrite its own orbit, and transmit structured data, then we are not dealing with a rock. We're dealing with a machine, and it just activated. We can establish certain facts with confidence. There was a confirmed 17-minute global outage of the most advanced satellite network on Earth. There was a high-energy electromagnetic pulse traced to Atlas. There was spectral evidence of artificial isotopes, and there was a structured binary signal embedded in the transmission. These are observations, not theories. But there's one final detail that turns this from an academic debate into an immediate global concern. When Starlink came back online at 8:31 UTC, its integrity check failed, not because of corruption, because of modification. The firmware on all 6,428 satellites had increased in size by exactly 0.04 petabytes. That's not an error, that's a payload. During those 17 minutes, Atlas didn't just knock the network offline, it used it as storage. It uploaded something vast and complex into the backbone of our global internet. We don't know what it is. It could be information, it could be a map, it could be something else entirely. But whatever it is, it's already there. And it's running. Telemetry now shows a new background process active across the constellation. It's using 3% of Starlink's processing capacity. It's scanning, searching, and while that happens, every available telescope is trained on Atlas. The object is crossing Mars's orbit, it's slowing further, and in 8 hours it will reach perihelion, its closest approach to the Sunday. That's usually when comets break apart. But if Atlas is not a comet, then that moment may mark the beginning of something else entirely. The handshake is complete. The installation has finished. Whatever comes next won't be subtle. As scientists and engineers scramble to understand what's been installed across the Starlink constellation, the focus has shifted back to Atlas itself. Because its behavior since the blackout has only deepened the mystery. Natural objects don't slow down without expelling mass. They don't hold position deliberately. Yet Atlas is doing exactly that, shedding velocity in a controlled manner, as if responding to internal commands rather than external forces. This deceleration is not theoretical, it's measurable. Orbital updates show a steady reduction in speed, consistent with powered braking, and still no plume, no exhaust, no thermal bloom. If this were propulsion, it isn't chemical, nuclear, or anything currently catalogued. Which leaves us staring at a gap in our understanding of physics or at technology far beyond it. Meanwhile, the data uploaded to Starlink continues to operate quietly in the background. Engineers report no overt disruptions, no crashes, no visible interference. That's almost more alarming than an attack. Whatever was installed is stable, efficient, purposeful. It's not destroying infrastructure, it's integrating with it. This raises an unsettling possibility. If Atlas intended harm, it wouldn't need subtlety. It demonstrated the ability to shut down global communications at will. Instead, it chose precision, temporary silence, then connection, then upload. That pattern suggests intent beyond destruction. Historically, first contact has been imagined as radio signals decoded by scientists over decades. This is not that scenario. This is direct interaction with our technology, a system we rely on daily, a system that now contains something we didn't build and don't fully understand. Governments are responding, quietly. Emergency briefings, classified sessions, communications, blackouts in select agencies, not because of panic, but because of uncertainty. There is no protocol for this. No playbook for an object that behaves like a probe rather than a comet. And yet, despite the fear, there's another interpretation that cannot be ignored. Atlas didn't target power grids. It didn't disrupt hospitals. it didn't disable navigation systems. It interacted with a network designed to transmit information. That choice matters. It suggests communication, not conquest. The prime number sequence, the mathematical timing, the map highlighting Earth, these are not threats. They are signals, introductions. But introductions from something that understands our systems well enough to interface with them directly. As perihelion approaches, the energy output from Atlas is expected to increase. For a comet, that would mean fragmentation. For this object, it may mean activation, a transition to a new phase of operation. The installation across Starlink may be preparation, groundwork laid before a larger event. The unsettling truth is this: whether we label Atlas as natural or artificial, friendly or hostile, the outcome is the same. Humanity is no longer alone in its technological domain. Something else has demonstrated the ability to reach into our infrastructure and leave a mark. And as the clock counts down to perihelion, the only certainty is that the event on February 27th was not an ending, it was an opening move. As the hours pass, one question dominates every secure discussion room and observatory feed. What is the uploaded code actually doing? Engineers can see its footprint. They can measure its resource usage. But they can't trace its logic. It doesn't behave like malware. It doesn't replicate. It doesn't spread beyond Starlink. It simply exists, running quietly, as if waiting for a condition to be met. That condition may be tied to Atlas itself. Telemetry suggests a synchronization between the object's deceleration and subtle changes in the uploaded process. As Atlas slows, the process ramps up, not in power, but in complexity, more internal calls, more internal checks. It's as if the system is preparing to receive something else. This possibility reframes the blackout entirely. The 17-minute silence wasn't an attack or an accident. It was a window, a controlled pause that allowed a secure transfer into a distributed, resilient network spanning the planet. From a systems perspective, it was brilliant. And that's the part that's hardest to accept, because brilliance implies design. Design implies intelligence, and intelligence implies intent. Scientists are cautious with that word. Intent is difficult to prove. But when an object counts, primes, corrects its orbit, emits non-thermal energy, synthesizes unstable isotopes, and interfaces with human technology, intent becomes the simplest explanation. Still, intent does not automatically mean hostility. The data so far suggests restraint, precision, even respect for infrastructure. Atlas did not overwrite. It appended. It didn't seize control. It added capacity. As perihelion approaches, all eyes remain fixed on the object. If there is another transmission, another interaction, it will likely occur at peak energy output. That moment is hours away. And when it comes, the question won't be whether we are alone anymore. That question has already been answered. The real question will be this: what does Atlas want? As the countdown to perihelion continues, the tension inside scientific circles is unlike anything we've seen before. This isn't the nervous anticipation that comes with a risky experiment or a rare astronomical event. This is the quiet, heavy awareness that whatever happens next cannot be undone. In just hours, 3I, Atlas will reach its closest point to the Sun, the moment when ordinary comets tear themselves apart under thermal stress. Every model we have says it should fracture, shed mass, and fade into debris. But nothing about Atlas has followed ordinary rules so far, and no one seriously expects it to start now. What's different is not just the object itself, but the context. Atlas is no longer an isolated anomaly drifting through space. It is now linked, indirectly but undeniably, to our global technological nervous system. The uploaded code running across Starlink has not stopped. It hasn't escalated either. It continues at a steady pace, consuming a small, deliberate portion of processing power, almost as if it's waiting for a signal to proceed. Engineers describe it as dormant but alert, like software paused at the final step of an installation. This timing matters. The deceleration of Atlas and the internal state changes of the uploaded process are happening in parallel. That synchronization is not random. It suggests that whatever was installed is meant to interact with whatever happens at perihelion. Not before, not after, at that precise moment, and that reframes everything. The blackout wasn't the event. It was preparation. The prime numbers weren't the message. They were a confirmation of understanding. The orbit correction wasn't a mystery. It was positioning. When you line these facts up, a clear pattern emerges. Atlas did not arrive unannounced. It arrived deliberately, and it chose its moment carefully. The most unsettling realization is also the most sobering one. If this is a probe, then it is not acting in haste. It has not overwhelmed our systems. It has not forced communication. Instead, it has demonstrated capability, then restraint. That combination is far more significant than raw power. It implies observation, evaluation, and choice. For generations, humanity has searched the sky for signs that we are not alone, assuming that contact would come as a distant signal, faint and ambiguous. What we are witnessing now is different. This is proximity. This is interaction. This is something that didn't just announce its existence, but tested our infrastructure, confirmed compatibility, and left behind a piece of itself. As perihelion approaches, scientists are preparing for several possibilities. Another transmission, a surge in energy output, a change in orbit that confirms long-term presence within the solar system. Or something entirely unexpected, something we don't yet have the language to describe. What they are not preparing for is nothing. Doing nothing would make no sense after everything that has already occurred. The public silence will not last forever. Data always surfaces, signals always leak. And when the next piece of information becomes undeniable, the conversation will shift from whether this is real to what it means for us as a species. Not tomorrow, not years from now, but now. Because the truth is simple and irreversible. Humanity has just experienced its first undeniable technological interaction with something that did not originate on Earth. Whether that presence is observational, communicative, or preparatory remains to be seen. But the door has already been opened, and whatever stands on the other side has stepped closer. If you want to stay ahead of this story, as it unfolds, if you want clear, grounded explanations, instead of speculation and noise, make sure you follow, subscribe, and share this with others who understand that this moment may define our future.